I tried turning myself into a brand. That's pretty much all I did for the last few years. I created this YouTube channel called Dorian Develops where I talked about some specific knowledge that I had. And while I was doing that, I realized that I was slowly starting to become everything I hated about social media influencers. And the funny thing is that the advice and the approach that I was taking to doing it is what a lot of people tell you to do. If I'm being real, if I'm being genuine, if I'm telling you the truth, is because I wanted to be able to eventually not have to work a 9 to 5 anymore. I did a lot of research, and one of the things that kept coming up was creating a social media following as a way to make money online with low overhead. And the truth is, if you are able to create a large social media following, it can be very lucrative. But what ends up happening is that you kind of become your niche. It's not so much that you become your niche, is that it's your niche becomes you. And the thing that you talk about the most becomes your identity. I've talked about this a little bit in the past when I've made videos talking about my frustrations with YouTube and having a niche and all that stuff. But that really is the truth. And I've seen so many different YouTubers, so many people on Twitter who just kind of talk about the same thing over and over. And they act like they're ultra passionate about whatever it is they talk about, from people who run gas stations to real estate gurus to social media marketing gurus. In the coding realm, it's no different. You have the same kind of people in every niche. And I became that guy. I became the motivational learn to code life coach guy. And in a way it was nice because I was able to motivate people into pursuing a dream and into bettering their lives. And like, that's a really cool aspect of it. The thing is that I was kind of living a lie. Mind you, I started doing this because I wasn't really happy with my career. I wasn't happy working a 9 to 5. I wasn't really happy having to have a job. And it's not that I didn't like programming, it's that programming as a job is kind of boring. The work is very mundane. It's an office job where you sit at your desk all day long. You just write code and you go to meetings. Most of the time you go to more meetings than you actually write code. It's very much like Office Space. It's no coincidence that the main character of that movie was a programmer. The point I'm trying to make is that I felt a certain way about my job, but then it was the specific knowledge that I had, and it was a thing that I could brand myself around. I mean, I even made the channel name Dorian Develops. I became that guy. Regardless of how I was truly feeling, I turned on the camera, I put on a smiling face, and I gave people what they wanted. And through that process, I was really just focused on growing an audience. I didn't really think too much of the business side of things. I figured the business side would come. And it did. My channel became fairly successful. At the same time, I was pretty much burnt out at my job and burnt out with my life because all I was doing was working all day and then doing YouTube videos on my free time. And I ended up making enough money on YouTube to afford me a nice long vacation with my family. And at that point in time, I was gaining a lot of momentum on my channel, but I lost it when I started traveling. Even though I kept trying to make content, a lot of my personal life was starting to bleed through on my channel because the truth is I started to get a little tired of what I was talking about, and I wanted to document more of what I was actually experiencing. But the thing is that it was contradictory to the content that I was making on my channel. So this is where, after burning out from working so hard to brand myself and become this influencer who tried to convince everybody that learning how to code was such this great thing, even though I didn't really like it, even though I wasn't really enjoying it as a job, and I really didn't want to do it anymore, and I would have preferred to be a YouTuber, I had to turn on this camera and put on this straight face and tell people, like, hey, you should really do this job that I don't really like doing anymore, but I'm trying to convince you to do because it's great. The next step would have been the next step that every internet guru takes. And it would have been to make courses and to start coaching people and to go beyond just making content on the internet. Try to reach in the people's pockets, because up to that point, I was making money mostly from YouTube and ad revenue. And I had a few little sponsors, but nothing too big. And then a lot of the sponsor opportunities that started coming to me were people that just wanted to squeeze as much money out of my audience as possible. And while the money seemed really good, the products weren't that great. And even though I'm the anti-bootcamp guy, every online bootcamp was trying to reach out to me and trying to pay me thousands and thousands of dollars to sell their boot camp to my audience, and all these different online learning platforms were reaching out to me to try to sell their subscriptions to my audience. And it's funny because people give me a hard time for having Zero to Mastery links and affiliating with them. But the truth is that I recommended Zero to Mastery because I thought it was a decent product. They do pay me and I do get a commission for recommending people to their website, but I wouldn't have endorsed them had I not thought that they were legit. And if you only knew how many other companies that are really bad were willing to just throw money at me, and I turned down because I decided to take a moral high ground, because I decided to try to be a little bit better than the next guy. And honestly, it was kind of stupid. Bad business. I'm not good at business. I realize that now. I realize that as I tried to brandify myself, or brandify? Is that even a word? I don't think that's a word. As I tried to brand myself or become the brand, I realized that I wasn't good at business. I realized that I didn't want to take that approach. It felt fake. It felt disingenuous. I felt like Tai Lopez.
Knowledge.
I felt like the cliche, stereotypical YouTube online digital marketing guru. And Tai Lopez is the only one that comes to mind, but there's so many of them out there. It's really hard as someone in the audience to realize and see through that sometimes. I speak of this as someone who used to watch a lot of YouTube before I became a YouTuber, and who trusted a lot of people on the internet, thinking that they really had their best intentions when they were recommending a product, thinking that they really, really stood behind what they were trying to sell me. And as I've done this for the last 3 years, I realized that you can't trust anyone on the internet. And even though I've taken on sponsors, I try to take on sponsors and products that I think are decent, that aren't bad. Almost all the brand deals that I've taken on are from products and brands that I use or would actually use myself. And I really have tried to stay away from selling people crap. And I've also tried to stay away from selling people my crap and building my own crap for the sake of making a dollar. And there are some people who are legitimately good teachers who make good courses and make good products and have content that can really bring you value. But I also know that there are just so many people out there that are just making a product for the sake of making a dollar. That's what turning myself into a brand would have turned me into. You know, I'm sure those guys sleep well at night, and maybe this is just stupid. Maybe I am stupid. Honestly, sometimes I really sit back and analyze all this and think like, man, I'm dumb. I let a gold mine slip through my fingers. Although I still have time, I could change my mind. I can go back and start talking about programming again and start talking about all the stuff that my audience would want me to talk about. But it's not that I'm not trying to talk about things that my audience wants. It's that I unfortunately built an audience around a thing that I don't really want to continue talking about. It's like if I took my life as a whole and I took programming, it's like 20% of my life, and it's only been a big part of my life for the last like 7 years or so when I learned how to code. I've been working as a programmer and now as a designer and a programmer, and I've been doing that for 7 years, but I'm going to be 39. I've done so much more. I do so much more in my free time, like building this brand around my area of expertise, the thing that I do as a living. It was a fail. It wasn't what everyone makes it out to be. When I watch those guys that talk about it, I can't take many YouTubers seriously anymore, especially those kind of guys. I mean, it's not like they're doing dishonest business. They're giving a product to people who obviously want it. If these guys are making all this money because they're selling their knowledge, I can't be mad at them. But I can say that if it was for the sake of making a dollar and for the sake of financial freedom or living the dream, it's not the dream that I wanted to live. And again, I think maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I should have just kept writing it out, being the learn to code guy, the product that everyone wanted. But I didn't. I decided to pivot, and I decided to change course, and I decided to do what I wanted to do, because I am a firm believer that if you're not happy doing what you're doing, then it's on you to make a change. I've been there so many different times with jobs and lifestyles and the way I was living. And I've made the decision to always make a change and pursue something better. And if I didn't like what I was doing, I would change and try to find the new path in order to make myself happy or pursue something that I am truly interested in. And I will always practice what I preach because I tell people to do that. And like I said, I've done it with so many other things in my life. Had I kept trying to pursue the thing for the sake of turning myself into a brand and becoming the influencer that I was trying to become in the whole learn to code space, I wouldn't have been happy. And I am practicing what I preach, and I tell that to everyone, and I'm doing it right now. And I think it's the right thing to do. And I do believe that it will eventually pay off. And I do believe that if I keep talking about things I want to talk about and sharing my story, that eventually maybe I do become my own niche, and maybe I do become my own brand, and not so much become the thing that I talk about, but talk about the things I want to talk about until it reaches the right people who want to listen or need that kind of content or need that information or entertainment or whatever it is I end up doing. I don't know. All I know is that I turn on this camera and I want to share my story. I want to share my thoughts. I want to just talk about different things. I want to talk about things that interest me. And if the money comes, then good. And if it doesn't, then that's all right, because at the end of the day, at least I can sleep a little bit better at night knowing that I'm not Ty Lopez. But he is a millionaire. So like I said, maybe I'm just stupid, but I'd rather be happy doing what I'm doing than be miserable doing something that I don't want to do. All right, with all that said, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to talk about how turning myself into a brand made me miserable. So be careful with that advice when you hear it from people on the internet. Those guys are just trying to package you something that they want to sell you. And I feel like they're leaving a lot of stuff out that comes with pursuing this as a goal and trying to make yourself a brand. All right. With all that said, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.